I know what the Cowboys' first and second round plan is. Maybe it's because I'm a Cowboys fan. It's because I watch every single move this team makes 365 days a year. But I think really it's just because this front office shows their hand every single offseason. By the time the draft rolls around, it feels like we know where Dallas is going with their picks, especially those early rounders. Last year, it was Tyler Guyton. Dallas needed a left tackle with Tyron gone. They weren't going to just rely on Chuma Edoga. So they drafted a left tackle. Look back at 2023. They didn't address defensive tackle in free agency. They didn't address tight end. So what did they do? They drafted Mozzie Smith in round 1, Luke Schoonmaker in round 2. And I think we're kind of on the same trajectory this year because when you look at what Dallas has done in free agency, I think it becomes very clear what their first and second round plan really is. So let's talk about it. Going down the list of what they've done in free agency, I think you could kind of start reading the tea leaves here. What positions did they address? What positions did they not really address? And that's going to tell us where they're going to put their 2025 draft resources, especially those premium picks, those top 100 picks that really mean the most. For starters, I would say that they addressed the defensive line. They added and re-signed 5 players, and they lost 2. Osa Odigizua was re-signed, obviously that big $20 million per year contract. They brought back Tyrus Wheat, who was actually a John Bones Fossil guy, somebody that was on the roster really for special teams, but proved that he could play in 2024. They brought back Dante Fowler, who was with the Commanders last year. They signed Solomon Thomas, the defensive tackle. They brought in Peyton Turner, a former first-round pick. They did lose DeMarcus Lawrence to the Seahawks. Obviously, all of that drama you guys know about. And they did lose Chauncey Golston. I don't think I got to talk about it, but $6 million per year for Chauncey Golston, somebody that could play multiple spots across the defensive line, to lose him to an NFC East rival for $6 million. But I would say that Dallas pretty heavily invested in the defensive line. Of course, they didn't spend a ton of money, but they brought in a few guys to try and fill the loss of DeMarcus Lawrence, Chauncey Golston. And I also say they didn't spend a ton of money. They actually spent the most that they have in the past decade since Greg Hardy. They did give Dante Fowler $8 million. It kind of tells me that they feel like they addressed the defensive end spot, the defensive interior behind Osa Odigizua. So it doesn't feel like defensive tackle and edge are gonna be the pick, at least in round 1. They also addressed linebacker. They added 2 guys. They didn't lose anyone from 2024. They had DeMarvion Overshown, Maris Leofau, Damone Clark. Obviously, Overshown has had the injury. Leofau is a second-year player. You're not sure how much of a leap he's going to take. And then you have Damone Clark, who's just kind of fell out of favor with this organization, doesn't really get on the field. Though they signed Jack Sanborn from the Bears, somebody that knows Matt Eberflus from his time in Chicago, and they traded for linebacker Kenneth Murray from the Titans. So they did add to that room without losing too much. Once again, did they spend? Not really, but by the Cowboys front office standards, they did address it. They brought in NFL level players. And while we're going through these, you can still think that certain positions are a problem. They probably are. But when trying to read what this team is going to do, you have to look at it through this front office lens. They don't think like your typical front office. So I would say assigning Jack Sanborn, a trade for Kenneth Murray, along with having Leofau, who you think or hope can take a jump in 2025, Overshown coming back from injury, and then Clark as some insurance. I think they feel okay about where they're at. So it doesn't feel like linebacker is going to be a pick at number 12. Then we head to the secondary, cornerback, safety. I would say that it was addressed as well. Was it addressed as well as the defensive line or maybe even the linebacker room? No, but they did re-sign Marquise Bell. They re-signed Wanye Thomas. They traded for cornerback Kyer Elam from the Bills and did inevitably lose Jordan Lewis. And losing Lewis sucks, much like the Chauncey Golston thing. I just wish they would have at least tried to bring him back, tried to solidify that position a little bit more. But I do like them bringing back Israel Mukwamu. I just hope that he actually gets an opportunity to compete a little bit, maybe even as the nickel corner, playing in the slot. He did some good things back in 2021. We really haven't seen him get a chance. Maybe he does in 2025. For this group and what they did, I don't think this means that they're not going to take a corner in the first 2 rounds, but based on that Kaiir Elam trade compared to other positions, I'm not so sure they're keen on taking a cornerback, or they feel confident about taking one early in the first round. Maybe in round 2, depending on how the draft falls, maybe they can find a corner there. And this is another position where you have to ask, have they really addressed it enough? No, but I do think that they think it gives them a little bit of grace. And a little bit of grace is kind of what they needed at cornerback, so they can look at these other positions early in the draft. We're now into first round pick territory. If not first round, definitely going to be interested in that position group in round 2. And that starts with running back. Now, they did sign Javonte Williams previously with the Denver Broncos. They signed running back Miles Sanders previously with the Panthers and Eagles, and did end up letting Rico Dowdle walk in free agency. Now, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, those guys do not move the needle with any of this. Neither of these guys stop the Cowboys from taking a running back in round 1 or round 2. I see this more as they solidified the running back 2 position so they can get ready for their running back 1 in the draft. So they can just plug in an Omarion Hampton, a Caleb Johnson, a Quinshon Judkins, a Travion Henderson. Williams and Sanders are not competing for RB1. They're competing for RB2 behind whatever rookie the Cowboys draft. And I have a feeling it's going to be addressed with a top 50 pick. You just hope that if they do pass on a runner in round 1, that they don't reach in round 2 because they feel like they box themselves into taking a running back. The good news is this is a deep running back draft. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions, including myself, on the running backs, where these guys rank, what their overall draft value is. So I do think the Cowboys are going to find somebody in round 1, round 2, whether that's Ashton Genty or Omarion Hampton in round 1, or a guy like Quinshon Judkins in round 2. It feels like they just set themselves up to have a little bit of depth, have an NFL running back as their RB2, and select their RB1 in the draft. So talk about running back. Let's look at the offensive line, where they re-signed center/guard Brock Hampton. They brought back Dakota Shepley. They signed Robert Jones to pretty much a vet minimum deal. They did lose Zach Martin and swing tackle Chuma Edoga. The Zach Martin retirement sucks. We saw it coming from the very beginning, and I know that he wasn't great last year. He was injured, trying to stay on the field, trying to play, but at the end of the day, it's a big loss. Losing Zach Martin isn't covered up by re-signing depth pieces, adding Robert Jones, bringing back Brock Hoffman and Robert Jones, and having Nate Thomas, your 6th round pick from last year. Having those guys on the roster doesn't fill that void. I think the big question is going to be, does it need a first round pick? Probably not, but as much as Dallas loves their first round offensive lineman, being at 12, there might be a name there that they really, really love. And one thing we just have to discuss, I'm interested to hear as we get a little bit closer to the draft, we get a little bit more clarity, and maybe it doesn't come out because Dallas doesn't want to show their hand, or maybe they're waiting for the pieces to fall. Would this team be interested in moving Cooper Beebe back to guard and letting Brock Hoffman take over at center? Because if that's the plan, I do think first round offensive lineman is off the board. They drafted a tackle last year. There isn't a first round center in this draft. So would it be a good idea to slide Cooper Beebe over to right guard, and then at center, bring in a guy in the 5th, 6th, 7th round to compete with Brock Hoffman? I think I like that idea better. But I feel like if that's the move, if they do move Beebe back to guard, Hoffman to center, O-line is almost certainly off the board in round 1 for me. But maybe they're waiting. Maybe they want to take Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, put him at right guard, and keep Cooper Beebe at center. We don't know. Maybe they're waiting for it to fall. But hopefully it does before the draft, because I think it gives us even more clarity for this last position, which is wide receiver. Dallas completely neglected the wide receiver position. They signed Paris Campbell for depth. They re-signed Kavontae Turpin, who would be a great wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, a guy that contributes as a return specialist, and a little bit as a receiver. But overall, wide receiver didn't have any sort of investment. Paris Campbell is a guy that barely has 1,000 receiving yards in 6 years. He had 35 receiving yards in all of 2024. He hasn't really been a big part of any NFL offense up to this point. You can't bet on a guy like that. So that makes me believe, based on all of these positions, how much has been invested, Dallas is going to take a wide receiver at 12. I think there's going to be a number of names there. And if not all 4 of these guys, at least 1 or 2. Maybe this is the draft where all 4 receivers are there at 12, like Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka. Maybe Dallas starts that run on wide receivers. There's going to be someone there that they really, really like. And the one position group that they neglected to the very end is wide receiver. The way the draft stacked, the uncertainty around all the other positions, there's not a ton of top offensive tackles in this. There's not a ton of quarterbacks. Maybe you get lucky with 2 or 3 going before 12. But I think Dallas thinks they're going to have a wide receiver that they really like at 12. And it seems like we're really headed towards that pick. And maybe all the wide receivers are gone. Probably not going to happen. Then you take Omarion Hampton at 12 because you need a running back. And then you look for your receiver in rounds 2 and 3. Wide receiver in round 1, running back in round 2. You can flip them back and forth. Maybe they take a running back in round 1. They look at their receiver in round 2. I would love a guy like Alec Ayomaner. I think he's phenomenal. Typical X wide receiver. He complements CeeDee Lamb to a T. But in some form, some variation, Dallas is going to take a running back and they're going to take a wide receiver with their 2 top 50 picks. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in today's video. Really quick before we leave, I did want to mention Dallas also didn't spend a single resource on their backup quarterback spot. Maybe something will fall down the line. Yeah, they did bring Will Grier back, I believe. I don't think that's the plan going forward, but I'm not so sure that Dallas isn't interested in taking a quarterback early in this draft. Not round 1 early, but round 2, round 3, I'm going to start getting a little nervous if there's names there that they could possibly like. This roster has too many holes. You can't take a quarterback with a top 100 pick. Are you going to rely on a 5th round, 6th round quarterback if Dak goes down? It kind of seems like that's the plan, unless they're planning on taking one with a top 100 pick. But we're going to have to wait and see. You guys let me know down below in the comments. What do you think about stacking the board like wide receiver, running back, wide receiver? You let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I love you all, and I'll see you very soon.